Just a moment. Okay, on behalf of Polar Educators International, would like to welcome you to the fourth hour of programming in our Fall Equinox 24-hour Share-a-thon event. I would like to share with you a little trailer about PEI to let you know more of what we're about and why we are organized. It takes just a moment for this to queue up.
Polar Educators International is connecting educators, polar researchers, and communities for a better understanding of polar knowledge. Earth's polar regions are remote, beautiful, and challenging places, and they have a profound influence on every one of us. We know these vast amounts of snow, forming ice sheets, sea ice, and glaciers, together with massive currents of cold water, contribute dramatically to the climate and ecosystems of our world, systems which in turn drive the health of our local environments and communities. Research shows dramatic change in the Antarctic, in our mountainous regions, and particularly in the Arctic, home to over 4 million people, which is changing faster than anywhere else on Earth. Scientists are confirming that human activity is playing a significant role in these systems, increasing the planet's surface temperature in ways that cannot be balanced out by natural processes. It is clear the urgency to engage the next generation in polar research and to rise to the challenges that a changing climate will bring has never been greater. United in our passion for sharing the importance and value of the polar regions, educators and researchers from around the world have formed PEI, an essential global network developing polar knowledge to engage a global audience facing climate change. We are collaborating to strengthen this community, building resources and relationships, and helping local audiences connect polar research to their everyday lives. Polar Educators International amplifies the voices of all those dedicated to understanding and protecting our extraordinary polar regions, and all Earth's inhabitants, for generations to come. Join us.
Okay. If you are interested in heading to PEI's Iceland conference in April, here's some more information about that conference. It will be our professional development and networking opportunity presented by educators and researchers from PEI. And you can whet your appetite for this Iceland conference by looking at some of our free online events of networking and learning opportunities that are already taking place or have taken place so far. Also, don't forget we have a Slack channel for this Equinox Share-a-thon, so please join in and add your comments or ask questions during the event and after the event, and also use the chat box feature in the Zoom link. So, organizing for the hour, we have a presentation, whoops, Hold on one second while that did that. I have to share my screen again. Hold on, technical difficulties. Hold on, letting someone in. Okay. There we go. In this next hour, we're going to turn our attention to the Arctic. We've had 2 great hours of programming about the Antarctic, and now we're going to focus on the Arctic and a research project that I took place with my colleague Matteo Cadadori from Italy. We are going to take you to the Svalbard Islands. One sec. There we go. Enjoy this presentation.
Good morning. I'd like to introduce you to Matteo Cadadori. We've been colleagues since the Andro project in Antarctica in 2006. He is a high school teacher in Rovereto, Italy, teaching in 2 different high schools, Liceo Filzi and Liceo STEAM International. And Matteo is going to share all the details of a very exciting project he did with his high school students. Welcome, Matteo, and thanks for joining me.
Welcome. Good morning, everyone. Hi, ciao. And thank you, Betty. I'm really very glad to be here with you today. And thanks to PEI for giving this opportunity to explain my project. And it's a school project that has been created in one of the school named by Betty a few minutes ago, and it's the Liceo Filzi in Rovereto. And the project was called RESET, and the acronym stands for Research and Education Svalbard Experience. It was a project that is rooted in polar experiences done in 2006 together with Betty, and in that situation we have been 2 science teachers selected by an Antarctic scientific research called Andrew, and we stayed in Antarctica for a month, and we had the chance to make a very important and relevant experience for our professional and human, from the professional and human point of view, and that experience triggered a lot of other polar experiences that we made in the following years, always together. And in particular, the RESET project started in 2014, and it was a project targeting to a kind of students, basically mainly girls, studying human sciences, and so not that focused on science, on natural science, biology, and chemistry. And the main aims of this project are summed up here, like direct involvement in the scientific process. So our idea was that one of really show to the students the scientific process as it is. So as a continuous process of development, discoveries, theories, collecting of data, and conclusions, observation, and so this was one of the main aims that we tried to achieve. The second one was provide an example of traveling as a true learning experience. Very often, all teachers and school classes, they make school tour that they have very often little to say about students or on what's real travel, what a real travel is. And for that reason, we want to engage them in a real travel with all all the issues related to travel, and and trying to transform the travel as a true learning experience for them. And then we were focusing a lot on the preparation to the travel as well, because the preparation of the travel was very long. It took something like 2 years, something like 20 months. And during that period, we had the chance to prepare the whole group to the travel experiences, to collect as well as making fundraising activity where we had the chance to raise all the money needed for the travel. And that was the hardest part of the whole project, obviously. And the fourth aim was give a sense of the fact that science, it could be an option for girls in the future. We already know very well, all educators know very well about the fact that science is not, the priority for girls in curricula, in their curricula, but with these experiences, we wanted to demonstrate that science could be an option for girls in the future. And is that right, Betty? Do you agree with me?
I do agree, Matteo. And I'll talk about that later as well.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Please give me any hints that you think could be explained better the whole project, since you know it very well too. Thank you, Betty. And the place where we were focusing was Svalbard Island, that is an archipelago inside the Arctic Circle. Is very interesting from a lot of reasons, especially because it's a place with a lot of scientific facilities, and where a lot of scientific research institutions, European basically, are working, from Germany, France, UK, and in that part in particular, that archipelago, at the same time, the climate change is striking very hard in terms of increase of the temperature and the impact on the whole ecosystem. The fundraising was one of the most important part of the project, and we adopted a lot of methods. And we started, as you can see here, this is one of the very early activities that we made in June 2014. And at the beginning, the fundraising was really very, very hard. Not only because we had to convince and persuade people that we were very serious in our purposes, but even because at the beginning we had a lot of conflict among the students in managing the different activities. But anyway, day by day and with a strong work, we made a lot of activities, like for instance, micro-entrepreneurship and sponsored as well. And families contributed as a regular school trip in a sense that they provided 400 euros and for each student. And during this very long process, we had the chance to meet a lot of friends that helped us in this activity. And in particular, we had the chance to meet a group of video makers that supported our project since the beginning. And thanks to their work, we managed to make and publish some video. And in particular, I would like to show you this one. Made in the 2015.
Cosa possiamo fare per questa benedetta raccolta fondi? Ma non le abbiamo già pensate tutte? Io qualche idea, forse ancora ce l'ho. vada come vada, noi alle Svalbard ci andiamo anche in ginocchio.
Ehi, ma secondo te manca ancora tanto?
No, ci siamo quasi!
Okay, thank to these videos and this product, and to the very hard work of the group of social that it was working on the social part of the project, we started to have some impact on media, on local media, and in the local community, and people started to know the project and the class and the students, and shops started to ask if we wanted to participate to the wrapping, to help shops to work in the wrapping activity during the Christmas market, and in that way, we were able to increase the amount of resources collected, and at the same time to increase our self-confidence in the whole project. And it was a very delicate moment, but we started to believe that something was happening. So, in addition to this, we made a very hard sponsor funding activity, and we had a bunch of institutions and companies that supported the whole project, something like 35 different institutions of different nature, like, for instance, Rotary Club, Soroptimist Club, or Lions, or companies devoted to tourism like Norway, Department of Tourism, Vineyard, and people in companies working in the outdoor gear section, or even in a meteorological field. And thanks to this very wide set of sponsors, we managed to raise enough money. And in addition to this, we had two very valuable scientific sponsors: the National Council of Research, that is one of the biggest scientific research institution in Italy, and a foundation dealing with meteorological data and based in Milan. And in particular, thanks to the CNR, a group of 4 of us was able to visit the Share-a-thon, that is a tiny village north to Gerbian, the main town where we lived, where we stayed. And Share-a-thon is a scientific village entirely devoted to scientific research, and is in the northern part of Svalbard Island. So the journey started from the 20th to the 30th of July 2016, and we had the chance to stay 3 days in Oslo as well on our way back. And we made 2 field trips during our stay in the Svalbard, and one of the field trip was 2 days long, and we had 4 different guides that helped us to go around. And the field trip, according to what students are saying even now, days after these experiences, was the heart of the whole trip, because they had the chance to face wild polar nature, and to face how the nature and the condition of that environment, and the tundra, and to visit glaciers, and to make a lot of different experiences with the aim of make a scientific experience and collect some data in some case. We summed up all the scientific experiences in this slide, explaining that working in groups, students managed to collect air, water, soil, and permafrost temperatures, thanks to the collaboration with CNR, obviously, and with sensor and data loggers. That we went there to put in the field, and in February 2015 they've been retrieved and sent back to Italy by a local guide, and in that way we had the chance to download the temperature data of 8 months and to work on it. And we made optical density measurements thanks to the National Research Council of Bologna, geological and naturalistic observation, and other groups of students. They worked on communication in audio and visual, and visual as well as visual. We had a small team of video maker with us during the whole trip, and during that day we had a quite good impact on the media, even national one. And you can have a comprehensive list of press releases at this link. And you can see that we had a lot of articles on national newspaper and at least 4 TV, how can I say, 4 TV
interviews
in national TV station. And thanks to this work, we after our return, after we came back to Italy, we had the chance to be invited in science meetings and events like meteorological festival and science festival as well in Genoa. And we organized the Polar Educator International annual meeting in 2017, and we made dozens of meetings with sponsors and schools, even around Italy. They were all interested in having a first-time story and information from students about the whole project. And according to after this activity, we had the chance even to support a group of students of Treviso town. It's a town not that far from the place where I live, that decided to make exactly the same project, and they were able to make exactly the same experiences in 2019. So three years after the research project. And obviously, in addition to all these feedbacks, students, they were able to discuss all the aspects of the project during the final exam in June 2017. And the group of filmmakers was so active that they managed to make a film that explained the whole project. And the film was one of the most important final product that we made, because it's a professional film, docu-film, and that is giving a sense of the whole project. And the film has been selected and displayed during the 65th edition of the Trento Mountain Festival. That is an international film festival that is hosted in Trento every year, and we had the premiere in that during that festival, and it is 1 year long. And you can see the video at this link that is actually that is at the moment on the Vimeo platform in high resolution. And if you agree with me, Betty, I can show a small video trailer of the film.
That would be great, because it really shows the experience. Go ahead and share that, please.
Okay, thank you.
trovate il sole tipo Sardegna? Allora ragazzi non... Sì.
Ti chiamavano quando avevo detto senza standard sarebbe
insomma l'orso può arrivare all'improvviso e noi siamo abituati a immaginarci l'orso sulle quattro zampe in movimento, ma il 90% della sua vita l'orso sta fermo e si riposa perché risparmia energia. Quindi basta una depressione del terreno di 1,5 metri per nascondere un orso. Diciamo che noi siamo in 4, ognuno ha un'arma, alcuni hanno il fucile, alcuni hanno il revolver, comunque è una cosa standard che anche se usciamo per conto nostro abbiamo. Se fosse qualcosa che non va bene ve lo diciamo.
Ciao, se io muoio da partigiano,
tu mi
devi seppellire. Seppellirai lassù in montagna. Ciao, bella, ciao,
ciao 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 sui montagna sotto l'ombraggio è quello il punto di essere ultimi. Prima ero in cima e ti godi la pausa, mentre se stai in fondo
te l'ho detto, e c'erano anche dei rumori che provenivano, ma c'è qualcosa di qua? Beh, guarda l'altra stanza, scusi. La roba, non se la forza, perché lì ci sono questi da attaccarsi la roba, magari qua dentro ci sono le tubature, la tipo doccia. Non male. Doccia vista montagna. Siamo qui! Stavo mettendo sul caffè! Stavo mettendo sul caffè!
Che belli che sono adesso, guarda.
E bevo un tè. Bevo un tè, guarda. È venuta dritta perlomeno. Aia. Mi sono incastrata nei 2 chili.
Guarda!
Sì, beh.
No, ma guarda, sembra una...
Ma siete ancora qui coi piedi?
Ma
No,
tu
ma-
con cosa le va?
Con la Francesca aveva dei fazzoletti e me li sono
No, ma voglio dire, cioè, peggio di una rana.
No, ma guarda, questo buco dove...
Ma lo sapete che prima, quando siamo arrivati in cima alla montagna, ho avuto un po' di... Ehi, amici, sto per morire. Sì, ho visto tutto più blu, buio.
Okay.
Thank you for sharing that.
Thank to you, Betty. And I think that probably the video and the trailer give a sense of the magic that happened during that days. But probably seeing all the whole project now, it looks like that the most important moment was the preparation of the whole project. So waiting, probably the secret is in waiting and preparing and working day by day. So it shouldn't have been that good without the preparation. So if we had the chance to go to a tour operator and just buying with the money of parents the ticket, I'm not sure that magic could have happened. And this is my point of view. And a very important, another important part of the project was to have the chance to think about the whole project. And since I was the teachers, it wasn't that easy for me to help them in thinking about how important this project was. And in that way, the support of Betty was really essential, because during our days in Oslo, she had the chance to stay with them and to discuss one by one and to underline and highlight all the moments that we just passed at the Svalbard and during the preparation. And it couldn't have been done by the teachers or by me, but only by another person that is dealing and so in love with the job of the educator as Betty is. So I have to say thank you to her and to his very hard work done along the project and for supporting me in every single aspect. Thank you, Betty, indeed.
Okay. Thank you, Matteo. My goodness. If you quit sharing your screen, then I will share mine and give my perspective on the project.
Here I am.
Okay. Thank you. That's wonderful. And I think seeing the trailer and seeing the video, the short version, and seeing all the efforts for fundraising, it brings back a lot of memories for me, for sure. I'd like to talk for a few minutes about my perspective of this project, because as Matteo mentioned, I was a teacher on the outside here in America, working with students in Italy. One of the ways I could support them was through encouragement, but also I did some translations. I did some translations for the students. I'm going to move that out of the way. Before we went, they needed to have things for their website, and I worked particularly with a gal named Michaela, and she and I did the translations together. It helped improve her English. Unfortunately, it did not help improve my Italian. Still trying to learn Italian. But this whole experience, to me, was an amazing example of what teachers can do with their students to immerse them in this educational and unique environment, something like Svalbard. So, oops, hold on. Can't get my thing to advance. I like to do it this way. So one of the things that I've always tried to do with my own students, I taught fourth grade for 35 years, and I also was an adjunct professor at the university level teaching science methods. And one of the things I always did with my students was ask them to draw a picture of a scientist at work. And predominantly the pictures I got were men in lab coats with wacky hair and glasses and working in a laboratory. And I think through our work together, Matteo and I have really worked hard to influence girls in science and show them that lots of different people are scientists. They work inside, they work outside. And so this project was so refreshing to me to see this group of girls and a couple of very wonderful young men in Matteo's group that were embracing this whole experience. And as Matteo mentioned, the preparation for the experience was a very big learning experience. So just to revisit where we were, you're thinking of taking a field trip. Okay, I'm thinking of my students and all the field trips I did in my years of teaching. Nothing compares to this kind of a field trip and an immersion experience. So traveling from Italy up to Svalbard, it was a two-step process. I think we flew to Oslo on the way up and then also definitely on the way back, stopped in Oslo. And here we arrived at Spitsbergen in the archipelago that is Svalbard Islands, spent the first few days in Longyearbyen, and then our backpacking trip took us over towards Barentsburg, and then eventually we were on a boat tour that took us up to Pyramiden. So we stayed within that red circle, except for the students that were able to go up to the Italian base. How do you pronounce that, Matteo? Ny-Ålesund?
Ny-Ålesund.
So a few students were lucky to go up there because they were sponsored by the Italian Science Organization. And so we were concentrated in that area of right around the Longyearbyen area. So if you think about this was our warm-up hike on the first day, and you saw the videos of the students making it look very easy to cross those ladders across these raging braided rivers coming down off the glaciers in the mountains. That was not so easy for a 60-year-old retired school teacher. I kept continually telling Matteo he's challenging me in ways that were quite ridiculous, but I survived, and I'm here to tell the story about. You've got Stefano, who was giving us information about the landscape, and our other guides that were talking about the geology, the plants, the animals. So we were being educated all along, even on this first, what you'd call a warm-up hike the day before. And this was at the top. We had hiked up a glacier. We were on a little spit of land sticking out. If you can see, back down all the way to the coast. That's how far we had hiked from the town all the way up. And then we hiked back around on another glacier down to the town again. Look at those happy faces. These are people that were enjoying this experience, whether it was hard or not. They had earned this. They had worked hard for this experience, and they were living it and doing it, and they could not stop smiling. I think watching their own teacher, when you go on a field trip with your students, you're active, you're doing things, but not in the sense that Matteo was, and that I was too, and all the other adults on this trip. Actually watching your teacher, hop across a crevasse in a glacier, that's a very unique experience. We looked at plant fossils that were hidden in the rocks right alongside this glacier. We had these experiences hands-on. So to do that hands-on was super important. The 3-day backpacking experience, you saw some of that in the trailer. Very, very tough. Some of the terrain was rocky and very steep slopes going up or down. We had the Greenland dogs to assist us carrying the food. They carried the stoves and the fuel and the cooking pots and pans, but sometimes they pulled us, sometimes they carried us. And as we hiked through the landscape of the reindeer, we just saw beautiful open scenery. Sometimes it was foggy. That's actually me being pulled along the tundra by one of the Greenland dogs after probably about 10 hours of hiking and many, many miles. And this really tested my friendship with Matteo. No, not really, but I thought I'm going to kill you for getting me into this. But look at the cooperation of the students. Angelica is carrying the backpack of one of her friends because the friend was too exhausted. What I saw were students coming together in a shared experience, cooperating, helping each other, learning, doing the entire time. Every single student pitched in. Every single student had a role in what was going on. So crossing the stream, the students went barefoot. I had to use my Wellington boots, not because I thought they'd keep me dry, just because I couldn't walk on the rocks of the bed of that river. And if you look at the bottom left picture, I'm thinking, oh, good, we're going to cross this river. That's nice. And then we're going to hike along the river where it's kind of flat. I thought, well, I can do that. Oh, no. We hiked, I don't know if my cursor will work, but we hiked up to one of these ravines. And I was definitely last almost always in this adventure until we got to flat land eventually. But setting up our tents in the fog, not even knowing what was around us, eating our dinner, standing up in the fog, all of our boots being lined with plastic bags. We were muddy and dirty as we crawled into our tents last night, but exhilarated and also thrilled with the experience we were having. So you can see how rocky the terrain, how steep the terrain was. Very, very challenging. Even though I've backpacked a lot in my life, this was the hardest backpacking trip I've ever done over a 3-day period. As I mentioned, we finally got to an old railroad bed that led to a defunct Russian coal mining community that was abandoned back and bombed during World War II, but reached an actual building, a backpacker's hut that we could all fit in for the second night of camping, which meant we were dry and we were warmer and meant we were happier, actually. But right along the coast, beautiful scenery. These students, the things that Matteo had them doing, like he talked about the teams and the cooperation. So some of them were doing watercolors. Some of them were doing audio recordings, video recordings. They were interviewing people along the way. They were recording the sounds in the glacier. And they did it. One group, a small group of students, did an interview on Italian radio from Svalbard. We met with the mayor of Svalbard. We really joined into everything there was to do in the town. The top left picture is in the Svalbard Museum, which was a great museum. And then we were also welcomed into the University Center in Svalbard to find out more about the students and the research going on at that small university. One of the last days we were there, we went out by boat out into the water surrounding Svalbard, and you can see the silt that's coming off the glaciers that has the water in the bottom right picture that discolors the water a little bit. And we went out to Pyramiden, which was a very large Russian coal mining community that was abandoned in the 90s, but is now open for tourism. So for these students studying the scientific aspect, but also the human aspect of life in such a remote Arctic community. It's the biggest Arctic community that's full year-round in the world. So that was an incredible experience. We came back to Italy very late at night, and the parents of these students greeted us with bottles of champagne and a wonderful, heartfelt letter to Matteo. And I know he doesn't want me to spend much time on this because it's always hard when someone's talking about you. But I've got to move my picture. This was the most incredible thing because they captured exactly what I had been feeling, that Matteo taught the kids more than just being a professor and about science in a classroom. He taught them to cultivate their dreams, to understand what a real commitment is, and to be working towards something with determination and courage, and sacrificing all the hours they sacrificed to do the fundraising. And even when they were tired, they were so fatigued, Matteo included as their professor, what they did was show perseverance, and that obtains great results then, but also in life. And they will have quite a story to tell their peers and their children someday. It's been impressed on their memory, and they can be very proud of what they did. And I'm actually superbly proud of Matteo for what he did for his students and what he did for me, because I was retired when I went on this journey. And I'm really not retired because I'm still doing a lot of educational pursuits. But what he showed me was what's possible when someone puts their mind to it and really puts the effort forth. So thanks to Matteo for showing that to not just the students, but to me as well. And just a few final pictures of us on this journey. It was truly incredible. And as tough as it was, I would try to do it again if I could. I'm not sure I could do that hiking at this point, 5 years later, but it was really amazing. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And we've got a few minutes left. Matteo, some final thoughts for you as a person now looking back at this, because it's been 5 years since we did the journey. And you did spend a couple of years of follow-up with lots and lots of presentations and such.
Yeah.
How did it impact you as an educator?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes have you ever heard the issue of evaluating school, evaluating teachers?
Yes.
And from my point of view, the best way to evaluate a work that a teacher has done is to see the effect of that work along the following years. And so I started to teach 30 years ago. So even now, sometimes I'm meeting or I'm in contact with my very old students, and sometimes I can see something wrong that I've done in the previous years. And obviously, this is really the most important part for me of every single activity or lectures that I've done. And in particular for the reset, for me, it is really amazing to see the effect of this project along the years in this small group of students.
I would agree.
They made different choices. Only few of them are studying science actually, but all of them they are smiling every time that we mention the reset experience. We still have the WhatsApp group, and we are always dreaming about our idea of coming back to Svalbard 10 years after. So be prepared for the
gosh, I better practice up now, better start hiking more. But Matteo's right, and I've gone to Italy quite a few times following up this project, and every time we get together with the students and we have a pizza and we sit around and talk about our experiences, and it's a long-lasting effect. It's a lifelong learning experience, and you've taught them to be lifelong learners as well. And even if they didn't all go into science, they've gained skills that will help them for the rest of their life.
Yeah, this is, I think, the most important part, because, I mean, is to learn how to deal with different difficult issues in their life and friendship, and in particular, I would say, to pay attention to the environmental issue and started to think and try to think as a global project, as a global issue.
Even though they didn't all go into science, they've all got those environmental ethics that environmental, those thoughts all the time because of you, because of this project,
because of us.
Because they learned about how important it is to protect the environment. So even if they're not scientists or going into a science field, as a personal thing, they've developed this love of the environment and the idea that they must protect it and teach their children someday and their peers how to protect it as well. Matteo, thank you so much for doing this interview today. It's been great talking to you.
Thank you indeed.
And people that have questions for Matteo or for myself can reach that through the Slack channel with PEI. That will be available, and you'll be able to get that information from us, and to send us messages about what you think about this project as well, We're anxious to
Yeah,
hear from others.
And even if there is someone interested in showing or seeing the full length video, just write and we can provide a free URL to access the video, because I am afraid that it's not, I mean, you cannot find it through Google, because there is a specific URL, because it's a sort of private film, but we can show them to anyone he wants.
And people out there who are watching this recording, it's a great thing. It's a great tool for your classroom to show students, because it shows them what is possible, and that's the most important thing.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matteo.
Thank you, indeed, and thank you.
Okay, that's the end of that broadcast, and we have time for some questions. If anybody would like to ask a question, I'd love to hear from you. One of the comments in the chat box from Maria Pia Casarini says that Reset is a landmark project for teachers and students. There should be many more teachers like him, but he is unique. I totally agree with Pia's assessment of Matteo as an educator. It's pretty incredible when you see someone that's willing to put forth the time and effort to do the 2 years of fundraising, to implement the project, and then do the couple of years of follow-up that are required for a project like the Reset project. That's one of the most amazing things I found about Matteo, is his willingness to give that time and effort to his students. And they are better for it, and I am better for it as a colleague of his and a co-chaperone on that trip. It truly was one of the hardest things I've done in terms of activity and backpacking, but so worth it in so many ways. Okay. Pia, there you are. We're talking about how unique Matteo is and how incredible it is when you see an educator like that in action.
Absolutely, and we were very lucky that Matteo came to various Italian festivals. When I was director of the Italian Polar Institute, we had a big meeting in Genova, and he came with some students. He's been on national television. It's just too modest to say that, but absolutely, I'm a total fan of Matteo. I first met him at the AGU in San Francisco in 2011, when Polar Educators really wasn't even started as Polar Educators International. It was just a group of enthusiastic teachers. So we go back a long way, and you presented him beautifully. And I'm really, really thankful to you for showcasing such an amazing project.
Well, and I think people like Matteo can be inspirational to other educators and scientists working together. And I think you don't have to do a project on the same scale as what Matteo did, because certainly that's a huge commitment, both with time and financially, just to raise that amount of money for that many people to go. But as he mentioned, going on field trips, making a regular tour. I think of all the field trips I took as an educator with my students, and how much preparation went into just a day-long field trip. And all I could think about the whole time we were on this trip is like danger of death, and how if we were in America, this trip would never be happening, because we were walking along the edge of cliffs that dropped off to the ocean below and climbing up and down. There was such a risk factor, but these students embraced that, and Matteo embraced that, and had great guides and leadership on the ground in Svalbard, which made a big difference as well. Having the guides that were with us, that were very knowledgeable and were always looking out for our safety. So I did feel quite safe on the journey, other than my own physical limitations. As an older person, as almost the oldest person, there was one gal older than myself, and she lives in the Trento region. So she's like a little mountain goat going up and down the mountains. I live at sea level, so it's quite a different story to be doing a trip like that if you're used to sea level. So
that's right. So that was a marvelous experience for everybody, I'm sure. And well, safety regulations in Italy, if you just do a day trip, are just as what you say. But
Are they?
away from what you can see, that's fine.
Well, I know from working with my Swedish colleagues up in the mountains near Abisko National Park and around their area in Luleå, I've been on field trips with them, and very different rules and regulations depending on which country you're in and how strict people are with the types of safety things that would be required of a trip like that. So,
But, those kids will remember it for the rest of their lives. And
forever.
also, not just remembering it as fun, I'm sure that the formative effect that it has on each of them mature them far more, realize that if you want something, you fight for it.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
I think at that age is a marvelous message and educational idea that should be implemented.
Well, especially at that age, I agree, because it's such a formative period in their life to know that perseverance and determination and just a lot of grit can get you where you want to be in life. And it is an experience that they're never, I mean, I certainly can't forget it. And I had already finished my career and was, retired, but I will never forget working with those students and working with Matteo.
Absolutely. I can see that for them, it might be just a lesson for life.
Yes.
It will impinge on their way, finding a job, a dream that they have. That was a dream, but it was a dream that a teacher, one of 8 teachers in their school, actually made. And that is absolutely amazing. I can see we are both huge fans of Matteo.
We are. Well, I really am. I was from the very first moment I met him, just because I could sense that enthusiasm and dedication to education. And our polar experience together launched us into a whole new platform. I'm going to go ahead and get ready for the next session. So just hang in there for 1 second. Thanks, Pia.
The next hour. Okay. Then I'll have
I hope the transition is smoother than the last hour, but we can only hope.
Absolutely. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.